Welcome back, guys. This is Gaming with Austin 55 of Pyramid City. What we're gonna do is continue on with the construction of floor 13. Just like why do we love sugar so much? It's something we're born with. In nature, children are hardwired to love sweets from the get-go. It's not their fault. Being underweight means being unnaturally thin. Your likelihood of becoming overweight depends on several risk factors. One of those factors is air quality, believe it or not. Because, you know, until recently, people always thought obesity was related to sedentary lifestyle and junk food diets. But it's more than just that. And we came to realize that it's more than just junk food and sedentary lifestyle. It's actually more than those, actually. Another variable you gotta take into account is the quality of the air we're breathing, the materials we're using to contain our food. Air pollution's simply enough to turn one healthy environment into an obesogenic environment. Regardless of what materials used to make our containers for our food. So simply put it, air pollution is simply enough to create an obesogenic environment, even in the absence of BPA, another obesogenic plastics used to store our food. The effects of the pollutants that are released into the air, some of them might actually be permanent. The effects would... It's possible that the effects would be passed on to their descendants, like how the effects of Agent Orange are passed on to the one that has affected its descendants. Yeah, like that. How does the air pollution lead to obesity? For one, it screws with your lungs, making it hard for you to exercise. Physically hard. And more you're exposed to the pollutants released into the air, the less healthy your lungs become. Which means the harder your it'll be for you to exercise. That effect could last the rest of your life. It requires more than just giving your child a fatal dose of vitamin N to get them to stop overeating. It takes more than just that. In fact, oftentimes it doesn't even work because it goes against human nature. Because we're naturally inclined to overeat, as with a lot of animals. Because in nature, if you don't know when your next meal is, you have no choice but to overeat. And be hungry all the time. Those who almost always feel full, no matter how much they actually ate, probably gonna be fucked when a famine strikes. Even in the abundance of food, being extremely lean, like 6% body fat or less, is not healthy. If a man and a woman of the same height and weight have the same fat percentage, the woman would be at a much greater risk of osteoporosis. And that's because not only estrogen makes it hard for your body to absorb vitamin D, it also makes it to where you need more vitamin D to have the same effects. If you're a woman, physiologically. If you don't know how many children will survive to adulthood, in nature you have to have a lot of kids if you don't know how many will survive to adulthood. Because even if we start vaccinating every child for all those viruses out there in Africa, there's still another factor we need to think about that is putting your child at a greater risk of mortality. There are some rare genetic disorders that'll straight up cause child mortality no matter what you do. In fact, some children with those disorders have already died because of it. And in some cases, children with the disorder, oftentimes some of them would even die before they're even born. Sometimes they would just die before they're even born. In that case, it's called a stillbirth or miscarriage. Most of the cases of miscarriages might actually be due to something called Smith-Lemli-Opitz syndrome. Like, especially if you did everything you could to prevent a miscarriage, yet you ended up with a miscarriage regardless of what you did, to try to minimize risk. It might actually have to do with something called Smith-Lemli-Opitz syndrome. If you want to be able to prevent a miscarriage, my advice, like, if you're a carrier, if you and your partner are both carriers of a gene, like, have one genetic mutation, like, that prevents production of something called 7-dehydrocholesterol reductase, there's a 1 in 4 chance your pregnancy would end in a miscarriage. But if you are a carrier, like, it's an autosomal recessive disorder, meaning you need 2 defective copies for the disorder to be present. The disorder will be present if you have 2 defective copies. Oftentimes, patients with that disorder oftentimes die before they're even born. There's literally nothing you can do. Of those who do survive to birth, oftentimes they die shortly after birth. Even with the best care. Even in a country with really good health care, Smith-Lemli-Opitz syndrome is oftentimes a death sentence. All animal cells are made of cholesterol, believe it or not. For most of us that are alive today, our bodies produce as much cholesterol as necessary. Which means, for most of us, we don't need to source it in our diet. It is possible that cats have to source cholesterol in their diet. Because they don't... Because my theory on how... is because cats have very short guts. Compared to their torso. Forcing a child to work out in the middle of winter, like, should be considered child abuse. That is because, physiologically, you have to slow down. So you could conserve energy to survive the winter. It doesn't matter how abundant food is. You still have to conserve energy. If you're already very lean, you need to store more fat. Why do some people have leptin resistance? One of the explanations for leptin resistance would be a rare genetic disorder called Prader-Willi syndrome, in which the part of the brain called the hypothalamus cannot even detect leptin at all, due to a genetic defect on chromosome 15. Like, where you don't inherit... Like, in which you have a pair of chromosomes on chromosome 15, yet you inherit mostly your mother's side. But don't inherit all of your father's piece of you only inherit a piece of your father's chromosome 15. The part of your brain that regulates appetite also regulates body temperature, which means oftentimes people with Prader-Willi syndrome need very thick layers of clothing because they're cold all the time. Even if it's actually really... They feel cold all the time even if it's actually really hot. As in fact tested for Prader-Willi syndrome back in 2012, believe it or not. The good news is, I do not have the disorder. If I did, all the food would have to be kept under lock and key. And I'd have no choice but to drink lots of water. To keep the hunger pangs at bay. The most well-known case of Prader-Willi syndrome is a man named Connor Hayback. It's a man named Connor Hayback. From an episode of Mystery Diagnosis. He's one of the most well-known cases of Prader-Willi syndrome. Left to their own devices, those with Prader-Willi syndrome will literally eat themselves to death. Like, basically keep eating and eating until their stomachs rupture. But even with drinking all the water, sometimes they have to lock up even the bottles of water too to make sure they don't suffer from hyponatremia. Because that's what could happen if you drink too much water in a short period of time. Or follow a low-sodium diet over a long period. Following a low-sodium diet over a long period of time can cause chronic hyponatremia. But drinking too much water in a short period of time causes acute hyponatremia. A lot of the malnourished people in the third world are not just dehydrated. They are also hyponatremia. They're also hypokalemic and hyponatremic. Which makes rehydrating them a very intense job. Because you gotta make sure they don't suffer... You gotta make sure that not only you're replenishing their fluids, but also replenishing their salts. Just like when you sweat in a workout, you're not just losing water. You're losing a lot of minerals too that you need, like salt and potassium. Which is why I advise against following a low-sodium diet. In fact, I'm better off following a very high-sodium diet. Because one advantage of being in a chronically hypernatremic state is that you could actually cut down and get shredded looking. Because your body will pee out more sodium that way. Water goes where salt goes. Ich habe ein Message für Cartoon Network. Für deine 30. Anniversary. Like, believe it or not, the first ever Cartoon Network show was actually a computer animated show. Like, with live, like, kind of like, which, it's kind of like motion capture animation. And if you don't know what it is, the name of the show is called The Moxie Show. Believe it or not. Oder nicht. Geblieben oder nicht. Like, believe it or not, that's actually the name of the show. Believe it or not. Only 2 episodes have been found so far. Moxie hat. Gelb T-Shirt. Schwarz und Weiß Schuhe. Schwarz und Rot. Like, hat Handschuhe weiß. Hat Handschuhe weiß. Sometimes I try to practice a bit of German too. Hat Handschuhe weiß. Sometimes I would speak a bit of German in my gaming videos. Sometimes I have poor syntax, but I'm slowly trying to improve. I took German when I was in high school. Wenn ich wäre nach Gymnasium. Wenn ich wäre nach Gymnasium. Wenn ich wäre nach Gymnasium. Deutschland ist gekannt für Wacken-Musikfestival, Europapark, Oktoberfest und Bier. Oktoberfest, Europapark, Wacken Musikfestival und Bier. Und Bier. Lots of beer. Und Antifaschista. Because after the death of Adolf Hitler, people had to learn the history of Nazi Germany in very graphic detail to ensure something like that never happens again. Like how Hitler rose to power through racism, maybe even slavery. He might have used slavery to help him rise to power. And Sparrow, on the other hand, he was born in Latvia and raised in Germany. And he gets high off of rotten meat. Ugh. Which is disgusting. I'm better off being vegan. If you're asking me, ich bin besser bei nach ein Vegan Diet. Ich bin ein Vegan. Ich bin ein Vegan. Vegan gang. My diet advice for y'all subscriber, those watching my videos. My diet advice, if you want to improve your heart health, my diet advice is to go vegan. That's my diet advice to you. Give up the carbs. Go vegan. You should be fine. One thing I noticed in my training regimen is that my lats are growing. They're getting bigger and bigger. Sie sind gemischter, größer und größer und größer. Ich habe Großlats. Like gross comparative. Like compared to 2 years ago, I'm developing some lats from all the rows I'm doing. Since going vegan, my health has improved. My energy levels have exploded. Like, gone up in leaps and bounds. So I totally recommend following a vegan diet. Because it reduces your overall cholesterol. My diet advice to you is go vegan. If you're careful, you should also put your dog on a vegan diet too. But if you have a cat, you may want to think twice before you ever put your cat on a vegan diet. Because it's not healthy for your cat. Imagine eating nothing but fast food yet following a 2,000 calorie diet. Yeah, same thing. You're gonna become malnourished. Even though you're consuming the same amount of calories, you're gonna become malnourished. It's not just those with poor diets that are at a greater risk of malnutrition. Even if you follow a diet correctly, there's another factor you need to think about that will put you at risk of malnutrition that many of us don't know about. Just having a low body fat percentage can actually put you at a greater risk. Because some of the vitamins you definitely need are not water soluble. They are fat soluble. Which means if you have a greater requirement for vitamin D, being extremely lean should be something you should think twice before you ever think about doing. And for those people who have a greater requirement for vitamin D, fat loss is not healthy. For those with a greater requirement of vitamin A, D, E, and or K, it's best that you stay fat to ensure proper absorption. Because your body fat's not just there to keep you warm, or to help you conserve energy in the event of a famine. It also ensures proper absorption of certain vitamins that you need in your diet. Even if your body can break down beta-carotene. Your body breaks down beta-carotene, but it's tightly regulated. Anyways, this should be it for this video. Don't forget to leave a like if you like this video. Dislike if you disliked it. Subscribe for more. Don't forget to share this with your friends on social media. And as always, don't forget to follow me on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook for more content like that. As always, thank you for watching. Stay tuned for more, and choose.